Hey everyone, welcome back. David in History for the Ages here. Please always remember like, subscribe, share these videos, leave comments, and this should be an interesting one. Who has the bomb, right? Some interesting topics, must-know information about the atomic bomb, and let's get right to it. So my most popular video that I've made up to this point is something called What is the Samson Option? If you haven't seen it, I'll leave the link here in the description. It's got over 140,000 views at the time I'm recording this. And it, of course, deals with the atomic bomb and specifically with events in the Middle East. So, what's the history? I do also have another video just on the Manhattan Project, and I'll leave that link here as well if you want to learn how it was developed and Oppenheimer, really interesting material there. But these are some things that I didn't talk about in my other videos that I want to talk about here. So there are the first five nations to have the atomic bomb. There are about total 9 nations we believe who actually have the atomic bomb today. But the first five were, of course, the United States, 1945, the Trinity test. And if you saw the Oppenheimer movie, there's that dramatic moment where they do the test of the bomb there. It's really cool. I have a movie review of Oppenheimer as well. You could watch that. And I'll leave all these links in the description. And then you have, of course, the Soviet Union, First Lightning, as it was called, 1949. A little bit after that, 1952, the hurricane test by United Kingdom, France in 1960, and then China in 1964. Now, obviously, all these nations have atomic bombs, and one thing that I think is really staggering is because when people think of the atomic bomb, we think of, World War II and Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And to give you perspective, the Hiroshima bomb was about a 15 kiloton bomb, right? The largest bomb to date is 50 megatons. So to give you a perspective, it's about 3,000 times stronger. So you think of the devastation Hiroshima did with one bomb, multiply that by 3,000 and multiply that by the sheer number of bombs out there, very quickly you can see how these atomic bombs can easily lead to a global catastrophe. Obviously, of course, part of the whole story of World War II, Cold War period was the idea of MAD, mutual assured destruction, that because both sides have the atomic bombs, no one's crazy enough to use them. There are, of course, what we call atomic bombs and hydrogen bombs. Honestly, I'm not a science guy that much, so I couldn't tell you the exact scientific difference between them, but I could tell you an H bomb are much bigger. So that much I do know. Now, one thing that's interesting is there are nations in conflict with bombs, and this is, of course, something that always is concerning. Now, obviously, during the Cold War, you had the Soviet Union and the United States, and of course, even today, Russia and the United States are not exactly allies. But there was this idea of MAD, and most people thought that was something enough to keep things from happening. Many people, for example, know that Israel has atomic bombs and they are surrounded by nations that don't like them too much, hence the Samson option video I made. But here's another scenario. You have India and Pakistan. So India was first to get the atomic bomb between the two. That was about 1974. Pakistan was a little bit later. And if you don't know the basic history of India and Pakistan, basically, when the British colonized India and they held it for a long time, when they left, what had happened before even the British moved in is the northern part of what was India had a large Muslim population and the southern part more Hindu population, and those populations didn't always get along too well. And I have a whole set of history on the Middle East, and you can learn. I have a lecture on the Mughal dynasty in India and all that. You could watch on my channel as well. But long story short, when the British left, they carved out these two nations, Pakistan and India. Pakistan would be primarily for the Muslims, India for the Hindus. But then there was this area you could see here and kind of on this map on the right, which is Kashmir, which was disputed. And these two nations have had multiple wars over this disputed territory. And the fact they both have atomic bombs is something that can be a little bit frightening, right? And this is true the fact that, so many different nations do have atomic bombs today, and oftentimes they're rivals. Now, one interesting fact about the atomic bombs, before I move on to the next slide, is ask a question: has any nation had a bomb and then actually gotten rid of them? And the answer to that is actually yes, one nation. So apparently South Africa did develop a nuclear bomb by 1982, but then chose to dismantle them on their own by 2019. Some of it may have had to do with internal political issues. It was the end of the Cold War. It already passed by then. Maybe they felt they didn't need them. But South Africa was the only nation that we have up to this point that actually developed atomic bombs and then chose to get rid of them. So I don't see any of the other powers ever doing that, of course. It's just really rare to give up those kind of weaponry. Then, of course, there's the last thing I kind of want to talk about here, which is the Doomsday Clock, right? So I don't know if you've ever heard of this before, but this was something that started kind of right after World War II, after the first atomic bomb, and it's this clock that kind of how many minutes to midnight, right? And midnight, of course, is end of the world. So there really is a doomsday clock. Some people think it's more of like politically motivated stunts than really using objective facts to make these decisions, like how close we are. But in 1947, for example, the clock was set to 7 minutes to midnight, right? 1953, 2 minutes to midnight, and that was when we started to see the hydrogen bomb develop. The furthest away it was from midnight, not a surprise, is after the Cold War. And then today in 2020 to like 2023, it's just, literally seconds to midnight or something like that. And I think part of that, again, is because of all the crazy that we're seeing in the world. But part of it is the people who make these decisions are not always objective. I saw, for example, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, it wasn't as close to midnight as other times when I think Cuban Missile Crisis was pretty intense. So, anyways, those are a few interesting facts about the atomic bomb. I hope you found that interesting. I'll leave all the other links in the description that I mentioned that you could watch and share, and hopefully you'll learn a little bit more about history through this various topics. All right, thank you for watching. I have a lot of stuff out there. Please share, like, leave comments. Everyone have a great day, and thank you for watching.